Welcome back to the Real Football Network. I'm Jim Miller. Last matchup we need to get into. How about the Detroit Lions? 0-3, head west to the Great Northwest to go up to CenturyLink Field and take on the 1-2 Seattle Seahawks. While Seattle's defense looks to be back to form. Pete Carroll periodically rotated in Cam Chancellor, their star safety, last week against the Chicago Bears, and he played well. Overall, Seattle's defense only given up about 186 yards a game. We're very good at stopping the run against Chicago, but it was a tight ball game, and it was really special teams that broke them out. Now, here's the difference in this matchup. I love how everybody's saying that the Detroit Lions cannot protect Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has been sacked 6 times on the season. When you look at Russell Wilson, he's been sacked 13. He was dropped 4 times a week ago against the Chicago Bears. When I look at the Detroit Lions, their sacks are completely avoidable if their quarterback just makes better decisions in Matthew Stafford. Last week throws a key interception to end the ball game against Denver and also has a key sack strip fumble. Granted, it was reviewed, but still, there was no play to be made that Malik Jackson made that play on Matthew Stafford. There was no play there to be made. Here I mentioned the sacks that have been tallied up against Russell Wilson because their offensive line has not performed well, and they still are struggling to run the football. Going into this game, Marshawn Lynch is 50-50. He's dealing with a hamstring, but keep your eye on Thomas Rawls. He did roll up the Bears. He's a college free agent from Central Michigan. Had over 100 yards, and really that's where the matchup is going to be again for Seattle. It's going to be Russell Okung, the left tackle, on Ziggy Ansah, the pass rusher for the Detroit Lions. Leads the Lions in sacks with 2 on the season. But here's the problem. He's dealing with the groin. Is he going to be strong enough to hold up against the run? Is he going to be quick enough off the ball to get some pressure on Russell Wilson? Because that's really the key to this game. Seattle has had a lot of negative plays due to those sacks. And Russell Wilson still has been making plays, and he found his talented tight end Jimmy Graham last week against the Chicago Bears. But I'd like to think Terrell Austin's defense is much stouter than the Chicago Bears for the Detroit Lions. Terrell Austin put a lot of pressure last week on Peyton Manning, and we'll see if he can do it this week tactfully against Russell Wilson. I still think you want him to stay in the pocket and make him make decisions. Once he starts running around, that's what really efficiently moves the chains for the Seattle Seahawks. Last but not least, when you look at Detroit, how can they get their ground game cranked up? There's been a lot of talk about Joe Lombardi in the play calling. I really don't think it's about play calling. I think it's the lack of execution. Their quarterback has to play better at the end of the day. Granted, Joe Lombardi needs to focus on more run plays, and maybe they spent more time bringing along Joique Bell and spending time with Joique Bell than they have Amir Abdullah. That needs to be the focus. They're 0-3 right now. Their back is against the wall, and they've got the weapons with Calvin Johnson, who will be facing a good secondary, and also Golden Tate, who returns to his former team. They should be jacked up to prove a lot of people wrong when you look at the Lions. They've got a lot of talent, and they have underperformed so far here in 2015, all season long in all 3 ball games. So it's going to be difficult in a difficult environment. I think we know that. I still think Detroit, they self-destruct. It's what they've done all season long. Seattle's too good. They minimize the mistakes, and they just continue to do what they do. Play good defense and try to still build that offensive line and that running game as the season goes along. Don't know if we'll see Marshawn Lynch. As I mentioned, he's 50-50. Their chances increase triple-fold if he plays, obviously. But I think they can still get it done against the Detroit Lions. I think it's a closer ball game than what people anticipate because I think Detroit is going to give the best swings that they can to try and get a victory on the board in their first of the season. So I've got Detroit losing in this matchup 24-17. Yes, Detroit scores 17 because they're in desperation mode right now, and that is not a good place to be in. For the Real Football Network, I'm Jim Miller. Thanks for joining us.